Hello and welcome to this week's Countryside podcast with Kiri Kermode and myself, Simon Clark. And it sounds like there's going to be some positive news coming out of the Isle of Man meat plant with the chairman, Tim Baker, giving me some news on this week's programme.
And it's very welcomed as well, Simon. And it's always nice to have some positivity, and it gives you that drive back home on the farms to produce the quality goods that these people can now go ahead and sell.
Yes, and of course that route off the Isle of Man that maybe it's been lacking in the past, so hopefully we get the full details with Tim on that. Also, you've been talking to a lady about a relatively new charity on the island, Kiri.
Yes, the Manx Wild Bird Aid of Castletown with Barbara Glassy Cole, and what a wonderful woman she is there too, with a back garden full of all these various birds and species, and the lovely Sally Swan that they rescued from Castletown. And it was great to hear her story and how they're expanding and needing help and more volunteers to get involved with that.
And what are you doing in July?
Well, it's Tynwald Day.
It is. Well, the Isle of Man are hoping to get a team together to take part in the World Sheep Shearing Championships, which will be held this year in France in July. And the Isle of Man have been overrepresenting in the past in Ireland and as far away as New Zealand as well, which would have been a wonderful experience for them. And James Radcliffe, who's one of the organisers of events, sheep shearing events on and off the island, tells me about the events that's going to be happening, and hopefully their recruitment plan to get a team to head over to France to take part, represent the Isle of Man.
It's a privilege to always represent the Isle of Man, isn't it, Simon? And this is a great opportunity for some of them young farmers that are quite able to share, and just a little bit of backing and support, and I'm sure they'll ship themselves over to France for that great competition.
Yeah. All right, that's all in this week's Countryside. Here it is. Aaron Michael, MHK and chairman of the Isle of Man Meats, is Tim Baker. And I got a chat with him and started by putting it to him that finally some fantastic news for producers and the Isle of Man meat plant.
Absolutely, yes. Really delighted to now be able to announce the strategic partnership that Isle of Man Meats has entered into with Northgate Foods, who are an 18 million turnover company based in Suffolk, in East Anglia, specialists in meat broking, and we've appointed them as our first strategic partner, which is something that we had a very clear intention to do when we moved to the new structure around the meat plant in fact exactly a year ago now, and we've been working hard behind the scenes to try and find that right relationship and to get the business in a place where it was ready to take the next step with a partner, and we've now done that. We've formally signed the agreement, and Northgate Foods are out there representing us in the UK, opening up new accounts and routes to market for us.
Now, Northgate Foods, as you mentioned, I mean, what is their line? You mentioned meats, all types?
Yeah. They separately have a fish arm as well, but the part that is relevant to us is traditional red meat, so beef, lamb, and pork, and they are very established in the UK marketplace, and obviously we've got the opportunity of leveraging their customer base, their contacts, their network, and I really do think this is a big step forward for us as a business.
How's this come about then? Because we've had sort of plans before where we've been trying to sell it and export it away, and it's sort of been a bit static, I suppose, in the producer's eyes.
Yes, absolutely, and we've been looking for who the right organisation to partner with us was, and even before we changed the company structure just over 12 months ago, we knew that we needed to do something different, because simply if we just carried on the way that we were, then how were we going to deliver a different outcome? We had obviously an individual, Miles McPherson, who was selling in the UK, but we were having fairly limited success, to be honest, and we knew we needed to align ourselves with a bigger organisation who had relationships with major customers and processors across all the different markets, whether it be retail or wholesale or hospitality. We looked at some of the big global processors who would have been far too big for us. We had conversations with some smaller, very regional people, and again, they perhaps were too small. And with Northgate, that emerged. They were aware of the island, and in fact, Phil Woodfield from Northgate came over to the recent stock judging that the young farmers did at the meat plant, and obviously that was part. He was over here as part of this relationship at the time, but we've had lots of conversations. The team have been over to the UK and met with the Northgate people. Phil Woodfield came over with his board directors and met here on the island, and we then had discussions and agreed a way of working between us in commercial terms, and we were able to announce the formal agreement at the IFE exhibition in London a week last Sunday.
So the Northgate would have access maybe to selling to certain supermarkets in the UK and across Europe, maybe, as they go that far?
They do have customers outside the UK, yes, and we're going to look at those opportunities as well. But the bread and butter business is the UK, and they have a range of customers across retail, hospitality, and wholesale, and we're looking to them to get Manx meat into all of those different sectors. And the thing that's really exciting for me is they recognise the value of Manx meat. So, there are characteristics of what we produce on the island that we know, but others perhaps haven't appreciated in the past. Immediately they got the quality, they got the low food miles, the high health status of our animals, the low intensive nature of most of the production here, and the farm to fork traceability that we have, and that's very much the way that the consumer is looking to go. So they see a big opportunity for them. We see a big opportunity for us in just vastly expanding our reach, far more than having one or two or three salespeople. It's a whole network. So it's something we couldn't have built organically. We had to partner with somebody else. And the really important thing is they only earn money if they're delivering for us. So
they're not going. You can't allow them to. It's not in their best interest just to lie back and get some money from the Isle of Man. Then
not at all, no. And I know just even from a conversation yesterday with Phil Woodfield, who's heading the relationship up. I mean, he was in a customer at 4:30 yesterday morning. So it's that kind of work ethic. It's that kind of drive that we absolutely need to support the work that's been going on in the meat plant and in the wider sector. And I just think that this transforms our opportunity now, and it is very early days. We're literally in week 1 of the relationship, so we've got to see it delivered. But we're going to be staying very, very close, and they're going to be reporting back on a daily and a weekly basis back into Isle of Man Meats, so that it is a seamless. Effectively, they're an extension of the business into the UK, and very much working together to actually harvest those opportunities.
It'd be easier dealing with just one group than several supermarket chains, that's for sure, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, and you try and open up new customer relationships. It takes an awfully long time. You have to spend money and time to build those. Now straight away we have access to their customer base, and they will be looking to promote our product in there, and lots of joint collaborative initiatives. So promotional activity, the branding, which of course you've seen us introduce over the last 6 or 9 months, and building on the operational improvements we've had in the plant, so that there is a more consistent product coming out of the plant.
How long is the contract at the moment?
Well, the intention is it's an ongoing one,
right.
But if it isn't working, then we'll stop it. Simple as that.
Oh, there's nothing in writing to say this has to be for 3 years or anything like that at the moment.
No, because if it's not working for us, we need to have the ability to either add new partners on or to stop the relationship, and equally if it's not working for them, then they're not going to be earning money out of it. So it's a very pragmatic. There is a written agreement between us. The terms are very clear as to what both parties have to do, but there's no point tying people's hands into a relationship. If it isn't working both ways, then it's not going to be a success.
What about the farmers of the Isle of Man or the meat producers then? I mean, they've struggled, and it's been common knowledge that they've got lambs, cattle ready to go into the meat plant, and I know we can't take them because we've got no outlet.
Yes, I mean, the big difference between how the new structure of Isle of Man Meats over the last 12 months has operated compared to when the FMA were running it was that we were very much driven by the market, and we would only bring in animals that we believed we could sell, whereas the FMA was obligated to take every producer's animals however they were presented and whenever they were presented. So we've become market-led, and that's had to drive a number of changes in terms of the way people book stock in, etc., into the business, and that's been a change for people. And some people have adapted to that really well and understood the reasons for it, and others haven't. But it's like any business, you've got to have an effective supply chain. We need to be able to say to our customers through Northgate that we've got availability, that we can predict when we're bringing animals through the plant, and so that they can place forward orders, etc. We've only been able to bring animals in that we've had a sales opportunity for. This single step has the ability to transform that for us, because
It sort of reverses it in a way, doesn't it?
Yes, it's pulling. It's going to pull stock through, and it's going to, I think, do two big things. One is it's going to increase our volumes, and we know that yes, Isle of Man Meats grew its volumes last year, but we know that wasn't anything like the level that farmers could produce for, and there was still a lot of live shipping going on because we couldn't take it in, or because the booking in period was too long. So we're opening up volume opportunities, and I believe we're also opening up opportunities to improve our selling prices as well, because we're able to see it more as a premium product and articulate that to the end customer, as opposed to simply having to sell meat through into the UK to get rid of it effectively, as has been happening in the past. So I think that this is going to change the game for farmers, and people need to understand that Isle of Man Meats has to have a financial dimension to its performance, because it's using public money. But the farming community is a massive stakeholder in this, and when we're making decisions, we're looking at it from both a financial lens and what does it do to the farming community, and what does it do to the food sector and the hospitality sector on the Isle of Man as well, and trying to balance all those conflicting pressures. But in this strategic partner was essential. I believe we've backed the right outfit here. Time will tell, how much impact that has, but I do think it's going to significantly enhance the opportunities for Manx farmers.
But of course, Tim, you will be getting together, I suppose, and finding out what people are thinking about this ideas, will you?
We will, yes. I mean, I'm very conscious that whilst we have a weekly communication that comes out to registered producers by email, we've not actually gathered together with the industry for quite some time. I know there was a meeting at Bemmerhague that DEFA put on around the agricultural support scheme consultation, but as Isle of Man Meats, we want to get together with producers and interested parties, and we're going to be holding a meeting in the middle of May, an evening, once people have got a bit more time, perhaps some of the lambing out of the way, and just to explain a bit more about what we're doing, talk about the progress that's been made, and how we see the future.
Chairman of Isle of Man Meats and MHK, Tim Baker, with some fabulous news for Manx producers and the Isle of Man meat plants with that deal. Of course, should take a bit of pressure off, hopefully, putting the onus on somebody else to sell the Isle of Man meats under the wonderful branding that it's got and the name it's got.
Oh, certainly, Simon. And it's always been the issue that they're not doing enough marketing, or they're not doing enough of this, that, the other. But in the last 18 months or so, they have been going in the right direction, steady away. And now hopefully this will up the throughput coming through the meat plant and maybe lessen that stagger time that people are always talking about. But hopefully very positive news and very, very welcome to the farming community.
Yes, and there's been a lot of hard work, obviously, to go into this deal, and just hope this can be a real successful venture for the Isle of Man on a sort of commercial basis, all of that. And one such thing that certainly isn't commercial is some of the charities on the Isle of Man, Kiri.
That's right, a new or a very young charity that's just been set up, the Manx Wild Bird Aid, based in Castletown, all run by volunteers. I popped along to see Barbara Glassy-Cole, to see what she has to say about her new charity. Barbara, it's lovely to come here today to the Manx Wild Bird Aid. Now, where did it all start out? I know the garden is full of beautiful birds now, but once upon a time?
Once upon a time, it was just an aviary with a few hens. And I think because I had an aviary of cockatiels and canaries, everybody thought that you could look after every other bird. So the first one I was ever given was a little moorhen that a seagull dropped outside. And it must have been a few days old with the biggest feet you've ever seen. And that was my first husband, had not long died. And it gave me focus at that point in time to actually look after something else.
Had you always enjoyed keeping birds? Was it something that animals was close to your heart, or was it something new?
Birds were something new when I moved into this house, and I started off with battery hens when you could rescue them before they went to the Chinese restaurant. Yes. So, yeah.
But it really has grown, Barbara. The scale that you are now, people bring birds all through the year to you. And last year, when we had the drought and the beast from the east, you were inundated.
We altogether last year, we had 842 birds, of which there was 80 different species.
It's coming into a busy season again now, Barbara, like you say. So there's always scope for rehabbers, people to come and help you, volunteers. They're very, very important, aren't they?
The whole charity is based on volunteers. Nobody gets any expenses or any funding at all. Everybody gives of their time, their vehicle. Everything is for nothing.
Yeah.
So the money we spend is either on veterinary medicine bills, where the vets themselves do not charge for looking at the birds, but once it needs x-rays doing or injections or blood taking or things like that, then we have to pay the bills, because we can't expect them to work for nothing either.
And one such case just recently, Barbara, was the swan from Castletown. That took a lot of veterinary aid, and yourselves. A lot of time has gone into saving Sally the swan.
Yes, Sally, she'd been on the side in Castletown for 2 days. No water, no food. She'd actually laid there, and when I picked her up, she was too weak to pick her head up, lift her head up. So I had to bring her home and feed her rehydration fluid, which with a swan meant a lamb's feeding tube down her throat. And I did that for 5 hours, for up to 5 hours until she was rehydrated. It was marvellous to actually see her lift her head and then start to drink by herself. That's when you knew you turned the corner with that. We knew then we'd done it when the next day we went in the shed and she trashed it. So
why do you think, Barbara, that she got in such a low state? I believe you read articles on the internet saying that we shouldn't feed the birds, the ducks and swans, such like with bread. Are people taking this advice and not actually providing food in the inner harbours?
There's been a lot about the bread. And like for hundreds of years, the swans and ducks have all been fed on the bread. But the problem really is stemmed from the ponds, where the water is more stagnant and the bread would fall to the bottom if there's too much given, and it becomes toxic.
Right, I see. So, but in a free-flowing river or beachside or harbour side like Castletown, it wouldn't be a problem to feed the ducks and the swans that are there then?
No, it's we particularly need them. The aim of the charity is to help sick, orphaned and injured birds and then release them back into the wild. Everything that's given is going to the birds, not to electricity or anything else. There's no overhead costs like that. It's aviary building, vet bills, food.
And like we say, it is a young charity, so it is all greatly appreciated. And someday when you go out the porch and you find someone's left a bag of birdseed, no name on it, and they're just happy to donate privately.
It's great when you find the bags of birdseed. It's a little bit off-putting when you find the birds that have been left on your step or on your fridge or wherever. You would be really surprised at what turns up, what's just there in a box. Or
But you would never turn them away, Barbara. You do your best to look after them.
it's unbelievable, yes. It don't matter what time. Well, we try not to encourage people to phone us up at midnight, though it happens, or 4:45 in the morning when they found a pigeon in a bin. So,
Wow,
so
you could probably write a book on
Barbara,
what
it's
you've
lovely to come here
had
today
come through
to
the sanctuary
Manx
doors
Wild
over the
Bird
last
Aid.
few And years. where did it all start out? I know the garden is full of beautiful birds now, but once upon a time?
Once upon a time, it was just an aviary with a few hens. And I think because I had an aviary of cockatiels and canaries, everybody thought that you could look after every other bird. So the first one I was ever given was a little moorhen that a seagull dropped outside. And it must have been a few days old with the biggest feet you've ever seen. And that was my first husband had not long died, and it gave me focus at that point in time to actually look after something else after losing a husband who was totally blind, and I'd been looking or with him for all those years, you know, as his support.
Had you always enjoyed keeping birds? Was it something that animals was close to your heart, or was it something new?
Birds were something new when I moved into this house, and I started off with battery hens when you could rescue them before they went to the Chinese restaurant. Yes. So, yeah.
But it really has grown, Barbara. The scale that you are now, people bring birds all through the year to you. And last year, when we had the drought and the beast from the east, you were inundated.
We altogether last year we had 842 birds, of which there was 80 different species. So it's not like there was 842 birds, of which 500 were seagulls and you know the other 200. There was 80 different species, and the seabirds. The most of them was 180 was seagulls, followed by sparrows. I think it was after that. We have all our figures down of everything, and we know when the birds are expected to come in. Yeah. So in the winter now, it's normally sick and injured birds. There's the only babies there are in winter are pigeons. Mm-hmm. They breed all year. Yeah. So everybody else, everything stops, and we expect the first lot of birds to be blackbirds, thrushes, sparrows, and that's going to be May, and robins. Yeah. So early May, that's going to be the first lot of babies that we're going to start getting orphans. That's going to be because people are going to get the hedge cutters out, and that's where they're the ground feeders. So they're the ones that are going to be orphaned first, disturbing their nests, or the cats might find them or what have you.
And with living in Castletown, Barbara, you mentioned about the pigeons. Some people don't particularly like them, and they need methods of control of numbers. Yet they live in the castle. It's a lovely spectacle to see, and they've lived there for generations. How do they go about looking after the numbers?
In the past, I think it's always been sort of done silently, looked after the numbers silently, where they might cull them. But it's been found that culling pigeons doesn't actually help, because they just think we'll have more babies, so it ends up they have more and more. Mm-hmm. So I think it's DEFRA that recommend the best thing to do is actually, when they're nesting, swap their nests with dummy eggs. Yeah.
Yeah, so that'll definitely help, won't it, in the numbers? And it is lovely, Barbara, when somebody finds a baby, whether it's a pigeon or a seagull, the little fluffy cute things, you can't walk by them. And I know you are up round the clock trying to rear these, get them the best quality of life at a beginning of life. It must be so satisfying to see them take off into the garden or into the aviary and go on to live a normal life.
Yes, you cannot, once you're doing this job, you cannot turn any bird away. Lots of people don't like gulls, but you can't say, we'll not bother with that one, it's a gull, or we'll not bother with that one because it's a pigeon and there's tons of them. When you're presented with a baby or something that's actually injured badly, you look after them or sick.
And last year, with the drought we did touch on earlier, the blisters on the baby seagull's feet, it caused untold damage to the wildlife.
Last year, the baby seagulls were actually, and the parents, the feet were blistering on their ears because you'd got 6 weeks of sunlight that was, the heat was, well, we don't normally reach 30 degrees on the Isle of Man, do we? You know what I mean? So there was no respite for them. Yeah. So the feet were blistering, the babies were jumping off. They hadn't got their feathering at the time, so some were injured. Hence why I've got about 8 seagulls in the front garden. I'm hoping that some might have just had damaged feathers. So when they grow them this year, some we still may have some that will fly off. I don't know whether it will or not, but we will hopefully have, instead of being in my front garden, our front garden, that they will eventually find somewhere as a sanctuary.
Yeah, and you're always looking for helpers, Barbara. Like your garden is inundated with birds, and you love it. But there's other people out there that might be able to reach out and help you as well by rehoming or taking them into an aviary to create a normal life before the release.
At the moment, we're gearing up for the busy bird season, which is going to start in May. We need a lot, or we would welcome rehabbers, and they're people that will come and feed the baby birds with us. So sometimes they can take the baby birds home if they feel confident enough to, and they can look after them there, and we will provide everything that's needed, guidance, the food, the utensils.
It's coming into a busy season again now, Barbara, like you say. So there's always scope for rehabbers, people to come and help you, volunteers. They're very, very important, aren't they?
The whole charity is based on volunteers. Nobody gets any expenses or any funding at all. Everybody gives of their time, their vehicle. Everything is for nothing. Yeah. So the money we spend is either on veterinary medicine bills, where the vets themselves do not charge for looking at the birds, but once it needs x-rays doing or injections or blood taking or things like that, then we have to pay the bills, because we can't expect them to work for nothing either.
And one such case just recently, Barbara, was the swan from Castletown. That took a lot of veterinary aid, and yourselves, a lot of time has gone into saving Sally the swan.
Yes, Sally, she'd been on the side in Castletown for 2 days. No water, no food. She'd actually lay there, and when I picked her up, she was too weak to pick her head up, lift her head up. So I had to bring her home and feed her rehydration fluid, which with a swan meant a lamb's feeding tube down her throat. And I did that for 5 hours, for up to 5 hours until she was rehydrated. And it was marvellous to actually see her lift her head and then start to drink by herself. That's when you knew you turned the corner with that. She was on a heat mat, she had a heat lamp above her, and she spent the night in there, and we knew then we'd done it when the next day we went in the shed and she trashed it. So,
but they don't make a miraculous recovery. It took all of your water to get her to come around, the aid that you've provided her, because in time she will be released into a normal natural environment, and they've got great navigational skills, so she will be able to develop back into normal life again.
Yes, she was extremely underweight, and she's still underweight. We took her to the vets about 5 days later just to get her checked once I realised she'd be able to manage the trip to the vets without dying of shock. So once we were at the vet, they took blood and tested that just to make sure there was no lead poisoning or anything else going on. And it was showing that she was slightly anemic. She was still dehydrated after nearly a week. And I was a bit worried because she was drinking, and I didn't want them to think that I wasn't looking after her properly. And they said, no, that when a bird has been as sick and as starved as Sally was, that it takes a good few weeks for them to recover because the kidneys have been damaged and other organs of the body, and so they have to recover as well.
So why do you think, Barbara, that she got in such a low state? I believe you read articles on the internet saying that we shouldn't feed the birds, the ducks and swans, such like with bread. Are people taking this advice and not actually providing food for the, in the inner harbours?
Well, the problem, there's been a lot about the bread, and like for hundreds of years, the swans and ducks have all been fed on the bread. But the problem really is stemmed from the ponds, where the water is more stagnant and the bread would fall to the bottom if there's too much given, and it becomes toxic.
Right, I see. So, but in a free-flowing river or beachside or harbour side like Castletown, it wouldn't be a problem to feed the ducks and the swans that are there then?
No, it's we particularly need them because in Castletown there's a male, and he is keeping everybody away from coming in the harbour. So they've had the rough weather out at sea. Sally was not allowed up the harbour, and also I believe that the new defences that have been put up has had a detrimental effect on the water birds, not the ones that come up to us to be fed, but the ones wanting to come into the harbour. I'm not sure.
It's difficult. It's difficult when you try to protect the housing and the people of Castletown, but it's quite often the case where some of the wildlife and other species do suffer. It's human in nature trying to get the balance, isn't it? It's never always easy. But it's great to see that you do lots of other fundraising things for the Manx Wild Bird Aid, Barbara, with the foreign coin collections and the stamp collections as well to raise money.
Yes, we're doing very well with the stamps. We have lovely young lady, Paige Havlin, and she was the lady that did the thesis on the wallabies. She knows everything about wallabies, does Paige, and she's our person that collects all the stamps and the coins and sends them away. We also have a little group of fundraisers now. Before we used to pay for everything ourselves. But since we've become a charity, people have become, we can take money. Before, you would be too embarrassed to take anything when it was offered. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it was like that. But so we've got a little group of fundraisers, and we always welcome, if you don't like birds, people can do other things for us. People knit little nests for the baby birds to actually nest in, So, and they're washable.
Yeah.
And it was Paige's mum who started that, and she's in Ireland, and she was sending them over. Then we have our transporters, so all around the island, and we're especially short in the north of the island. We have 3 ladies up there who will actually go and get the birds, because we put it on a group saying, there's a bird in such and such a place, such and such a house. It's been boxed or it's been got by a cat. Could somebody pick it up, and could they take it to either this place or that place? And then we will sort it out. So transporters will go, oh, I'm near there, or I'm working, or I can pick it up at this time. And that's how it all works, why we put it on a message and then people respond to that message. And so there's no phone calls. Everybody just has this Facebook messaging coming through to them and it's either yay or nay. Yeah. And that's how it all works. And there's nothing ever left. Someday, always. If it ended up where there was no transporters, then we would put it out to Facebook and we would ask, is there anybody that could do this for us? And there's always somebody. So, like I said, nobody is paid. They use their own vehicles, they use their own petrol, they use their own time. We have police officers that do it when they finish work. We've got IT managers. You name it, we've got from all different walks of life.
But not only that, you've also got the veterinarians on side, the MSPCA. Everybody is working together. And with it being such a young charity, you are reaching out and spreading the word that you're here.
The vets are all on side with. Everybody seems to know about us now. We use our own vet in particular, mainly because she's down south and she has the equipment to be able to look at the baby birds if they've got anything that's could be broken. They will x-ray it with a dental x-ray. They will try the best not to give a bird anaesthetic whilst they do the x-ray on the bird, because anaesthetic with birds is not very good, and even the healthiest bird can actually die under anaesthetic. Most of it actually we've found is when they're coming round. So if you can get a bird still enough, they will x-ray and they will see whether if there's a break there, there is a break that they can fix, or whether it's that one's not going to work at all, and I'm very sorry. But yeah, they do everything they can. They want to give the birds a chance as well.
So Barbara, out of all of the birds that you've had over the years, what is your most favourite success story? Do you have one individual?
There's no one individual. There's lots of birds that come to mind. There was the very first gannet that we ever got, and it wasn't me, thankfully, that had to look after it. It would not feed. It had to be when we say force-fed, crop-fed. Yeah. And crop-feeding a gannet that wants to swallow your hand at the same time and trying to hold it between your knees, wasn't good. And then getting a pond big enough to bathe in, keeping it free of aspergillosis, because we have to give them medication to stop aspergillosis developing because they get stressed. The gannet, I think, after a few months, she was really grateful to see the back of that one. The Fulmer from last year was the most gorgeous seabird I've ever seen as a baby. Cuddly. You just wanted to, you did, you cuddled it, and then you found out it projectile vomited fish oil at you. And it actually, yes, we have on our YouTube pictures of this bird, working its way up to actually throw it at you. So yes, there's all sorts. But yeah, we've had lots of seabirds, lots of garden birds, corvids.
And will they stay with you for long? Do you keep them for long before you... A lot of the time you will release them where you've found them as well, which is lovely because they'll have their family home... What do you call it? Or they'll have their family groups where they be lifted off, like the magpies the other month, found in Ramsey, treated and brought back to Ramsey. Yeah. That's a great story. Why do you do that?
You would have to take the birds, the adult birds, always go back to where they come from, because that's their territory, and you don't know what families they've got there. You don't know whether, especially when it comes in the spring, whether it's a male bird that's feeding the female or the babies. But anyway, it's better to go back to actually where they come from. Try and make them as safe as possible if it was a cat that got them, because we've had a few of them, but we've never had the same one back twice, thankfully. Either the cat's always been successful on the second time or the bird has learned. I do not know which.
And do you get many rare species to the island, Barbara? Because we have the standard, the pigeons, the seabirds. Is there any that have come to the island that maybe can't even set up home here, have just come here in a storm or by chance?
No, we personally haven't had anything that shouldn't be indigenous or coming here for the winter. We had quite a few injured woodcocks. The problem with the woodcocks at the end of last year, October, was after all the hot weather that everybody had, there was all of a sudden snap in October in Scandinavia. They had to leave Scandinavia without being able to feed. By the time they got to our shores, they were starving, so they were really, really underweight. Plus, when they get here, they're shot. So, they've not a lot going for them. So, they obviously, it's shooting season for the woodcocks. It's also, a few were got by birds of prey. But the thing is about the woodcocks, they are now amber listed. In Scotland, they've asked the game people to not shoot the woodcocks, to give them time to recover before they, start shooting again. But some don't seem to have heard, the news about that one.
Do you find there is a lot more birds on the amber list, becoming, critically endangered, running down in numbers?
It's really strange because everybody talks about the gulls. How many gulls? There's more gulls. The gulls need culling. And if they go to Manx BirdLife and find out the figures of the hundreds of thousands of gulls there were to the thousands of gulls there are now, it appears that there are more, but they were at sea before. They're not at sea now.
And what's driving them away from the sea?
Devereux, who have been really good to us regarding the fish, they let us have fish for cost. They have to get their fish from the North Sea because there isn't the fish in the Irish Sea. And I asked her last year, would the Irish Sea not recover now because you've got all these, and would it not spill over from the North Sea? And she said there was only about 10 years left of fishing in the North Sea, and then there would be no herring left in the North Sea because of the masses, the way the fish now. It's just massive trawlers that fish them out.
It is a sorry state of affairs, but you're hearing it the world over with lots of these wildlife charities and sanctuaries saying, this is happening. It is on our doorstep. It's what humans are doing. So we have to be careful as custodians of the countryside to look after our wildlife.
Well, Beach Buddies, I think it's first 2 days or a couple of days in May, they're having a environmental thing to try and make people aware of the plastic. People are now becoming more aware by not using the carrier bags, reusing carrier bags. Plastic is massive, but you wonder whether anything can be done. You're cleaning up the beaches, but the plastic is in the fish and it's everywhere else. And it's in the when you want to body scrub, the stuff that you're body scrubbing with is plastic, little balls of plastic that they're saying, don't use this, don't use that, because you're actually flushing that down. And the the fish think it's eggs, and they're feeding on it and they're eating more plastic.
And then in turn, if the seabirds are fishing for the fish, it becomes a problem in the birds themselves.
The humans are actually ingesting plastic now, because they're finding in, I think, most fish, actually, there's plastic. Yeah. It's minute, but it's still plastic. It's still there.
And as the year's coming on, Barbara, what are the plans? New aviaries to be built in the garden, or are we going to try and expand?
We are looking for places to put new release aviaries. That is, once we've hand-reared the babies, we have to give them somewhere so they start acclimatising, getting the strength in the wings, and they actually watch all the birds outside. So we put release aviaries in areas for the birds, of where the birds, what type of birds are to be released. Like here, where I live right under a rookery. So it's sensible to release rooks here and the jackdaws. And we have garden ones in various places. People offer to have a release aviary in their garden, and they are happy to sort of feed the birds and change the water. And then after a few weeks, we open a hatch and the birds are released. And once they've stopped coming back to the aviary to be fed in the aviary, we close that hatch and then we can put in more birds for them to be released in that area. And those birds that have been released are still being supported by the person who's been looking after them in the wild until they don't need the human anymore.
It must be such a lovely feeling, Barbara, to have hand-reared little chick that's turned up on your doorstep in a box from somebody in the public, to then go into the release aviaries, maybe not here in Castletown, but out in the countryside, and to see it take flight, you know, feathered and away to live a normal life.
It's amazing, some of the things that we see. Also, when we release birds, we've been having them ringed just recently, so we can see the success rate, because you don't know when you've released these birds and you're already releasing into existing territory of birds, whether your birds are surviving or not, whether they are your birds, because you're actually not encouraging them to be eating out your hand.
No, that's it.
You want them to be wild birds. The aim of the charity is to help sick, orphaned and injured birds and then release them back into the wild. So it doesn't always happen that way. We've got the gulls that have got the injuries. And the thing is, with some of the birds, and you keep wondering whether you're going to get it better, whether its wing is going to get better or its legs going to improve. By the time, in some cases, that you've realised it's not going to get better, it's very difficult to go and have the bird put to sleep. And the bird's very happy playing ball in the garden and playing in its little pond and things. So, you know, that's the way it is. So in some cases, we'll get a little sanctuary going for gulls. There's a few places across, and I'd like to do something similar. So we're always looking for anybody that could give us a little bit of land. We don't need much with what we do with the birds, or premises or something like that. Everything is done from everybody's home. That's how we keep everything. So it's everything that's given is going to the birds, not to electricity or anything else. There's no overhead costs like that. It's aviary building, vet bills, food, and we even feel bad when we take the money out to pay for leaflets or things, because we think, oh, that's not for the birds, you know, but, you know.
But it's gathering the support, isn't it? And like we say, it is a young charity, so it is all greatly appreciated. And someday when you go out the porch and you find someone's left a bag of birdseed, no name on it, and they're just happy to donate privately.
It's great when you find the bags of birdseed. It's a little bit off-putting when you find the birds that have been left on your step or on your fridge or wherever. You would be really surprised at what turns up, what's just there in a box. Or
But you would never turn them away, Barbara. You do your best to look after them.
It's unbelievable, yes. It don't matter what time. Well, we try not to encourage people to phone us up at midnight, though it happens, or 4:45 in the morning when they found a pigeon in a bin. So,
wow, you could probably write a book on what you've had come through the sanctuary doors over the last few years. And it's lovely to see children getting involved too. They want to come round and help you.
Oh, yes, we have young Jake comes round on a Saturday morning. Jake is trying to save up for a mountain bike, and he's happy to come along and power wash our paths, and he's a little bit nervous of the birds at the moment, but I'm going to get his confidence up in that as the months go ahead with the birds. But yeah, he's only 13 and he comes along and he does his best for us.
Like you say, Barbara, it's all voluntary work. And yourself, the knowledge, you'll be learning every day from the various birds that come through.
Every bird that comes through the door nearly is a challenge. You never know what you're going to get next. You don't know what species, you don't know what age. When they come as little jelly bean babies, which are tiny little bald ones, you don't know at that point often what it is. There's one in particular which I love doing when I do the talks, and it's bald all over, and it's got like a Furby hairdo. And I have to ask everybody, what is this bird? Can you tell what this little jelly bean is going to turn into? And nobody ever gets it, but it's a robin. They come with a mop of hair.
That was Barbara Glassy-Cole from the Manx Wild Bird Aid in Castletown.
And it's a strange one, really, because, you see lots of injured birds years ago when I was younger, and nobody really bothered with them. But now people seem to stop, pick them up and try and find out somebody who can help them, isn't there?
It's really, really wonderful. They take in sick, injured and orphaned wild birds, and they actually return them back to the wild as well. But like she says, it's all done by volunteers, but they're really searching for more volunteers to get involved.
Yeah, excellent. So wish them well with that one. But of course, a lot of farmers busy with the spring lambing and things at the moment, Kiri, isn't it?
Oh, it is. It's a lovely spell of weather, Simon, and getting on with the lambing, and also the ploughs are in, and a lot of cultivation getting done down our way in Santon there. So it's time of year's on, and it's always nice to see the new grass coming through too, isn't it?
Yeah, and we always remind people this time of year they've just got to be a little bit careful, with the sheep lambing, haven't they, if you're out and about?
Yeah, always be vigilant. Keep an eye out for the farmers, because they're very busy people, and it's hard to get round on all of the stock, especially when they're tending to newborns, and the calves will be coming now too. So keep an eye out for the ones on their backs, or keep your dogs on the lead if you're out and about too.
Yeah. Well, talking about sheep, and the Isle of Man are looking for interested parties to take part in the World Sheep Shearing Championships, which will be held in July in France. I put it to James Radcliffe, one of the organisers of sheep shearing events on and off the Isle of Man, why they're looking for volunteers.
Off the back of our successes in the last couple of World Championships, the first World Championships we went to was in Ireland. 2 years ago it was in New Zealand, and this coming year it's in France. We're hoping to send a team there. We've got space for anybody who's keen to represent the island with either machine or hand shears or wool handling.
Now, you've mentioned the Ireland trip, the New Zealand one. These are world level.
Yes. Yeah. We were perhaps most successful the first time out in Ireland. Dan Creo was very close to getting into the final in that, and he was into the last semi-final. We kind of struggled a little bit more in New Zealand, just basically because of the level of shearing that is in New Zealand, to be fair. Everything stepped up, to be honest with you.
Be a good experience, though.
Oh, it's an amazing experience. Yeah.
Because they're amongst the top ones in the world, aren't they, the New Zealand's?
Yes, yeah. We are playing on a world stage. In France, there's just about 40 countries involved, and we're well up there. It's a small island like the Isle of Man. We're well up there, sort of thing. Like, we're not outclassed, but we can get into the top 15 or the top 20, sort of thing. Like, out of 80 odd shearers, well, machine shearers, and kind of wool handling and kind of hand shearers. Yeah, we can compete on a level stage with any of them, to be honest. The biggest thing that you're going to get out of it is the experience. Especially in New Zealand, they gave us 3 or 4 days training as well.
So you're entering a competition, and the ones out there are sort of helping you to give you a few bit of advice and everything.
Yeah, that's the whole point of having the competition, is to spread the word, kind of pass the knowledge out there as to kind of how we should be shearing sheep and how we should be presenting ourselves in the world as professionals, to be honest. We compete at our own level. We might not be competing against the top championship shearers, but we are competing against Germany, who are the same level as us. We're competing against Austria, Mongolia, China, France, Spain,
little islands like ourselves.
Yeah, well, to be fair, the Falkland Islands, they're there, and the Falkland Islands are probably a little bit above us, to be honest, this sort of thing. You shouldn't be put off by thinking that, you're not good enough. You're going there to learn as much as anything, to be honest, and just to represent the island, sort of thing. Yeah, it's.
Yeah. What's the trip involved then? How many days?
It kind of starts the 2nd or 3rd of July. It involves a couple of days kind of training and different bits and pieces of immersion in to kind of like get your feet down, sort of thing. And then the actual competitions are held on the Friday, Saturday and Sunday, which I think is the 4th, 5th and 6th of July.
And what about the wool wrapping side of it? Is that sort of judged as well?
It is, yeah. There's quite specific things that they judge you on. You're judged on how you grade the fleece, how you present the fleece, and also how you handle the wool off the board, how you help the shearer. It's quite a technical thing and quite complicated, to be honest. And when you see it done kind of at the top levels, sort of thing, it's quite full on, to be honest.
Yeah, the top shearers in the world would rely on a good sort of hand with them.
Yes. Yeah. It can make a big difference both ways, to the wool handler if you've got a good shearer, and from the shearer to make sure that you've got a good wool handler. Yeah.
So no age limit or nothing?
No. I think kind of one of the American shearers is probably in his mid-60s, sort of thing, like the kind of American hand shears, sort of thing, yeah, and still going strong at it.
So if anyone wants to get involved in this or find out more information, James?
Yeah, if they contact me in the first place, probably the easiest thing. Mobile number is 473-837. And yeah, we can get sorted then as to kind of how they want to get there, when they want to get there, and yeah, and if they need any more information. But yeah, it would be good experience.
Well, I didn't see your name on the list for potential candidates to head away to France for the sheep shearing.
Not quite, but it's a great opportunity for young people, and especially if that's a profession that you want to take up and do. You can travel the world shearing sheep and actually make a few quid at it now as well. And it's a great skill to have, Simon, and it's pretty essential for animal husbandry. But good luck to the Isle of Man team there. Hopefully they'll get enough people to go over to France.
Yeah, and as James said, you don't need to be too professional. Maybe you're not long started at it, but you think it's a potential for you, because as he said, there's so much help and advice on hand, and the experience, well, you can never replace.
Oh, absolutely. And like you say, the older ones, some of the world-class shearers, they're there to bring on the young ones and encourage them. And it's part of their way of life to, same with anything, bring up the young ones and keep it going for the future generations.
Yeah, and lovely to hear Barbara talking about that charity, because, we've seen in the past, and we mentioned it, that, people used to just sort of leave the animals, sadly, on the sides of the road and things and injured. But now there seems to be a lot of people, the hedgehog charities, and of course Barbara with the bird charity, of taking in the birds.
It is really great, and if you can't actually happen to help hands-on with the birds, but you still want to get involved, they do foreign coin collections, stamp collections, all these little things to help raise money so they can feed the birds and give them the care that they need. And they've got a wonderful talking parrot there, Kiki, who dances. It's just a great little organisation, and they're more than happy for you to pop along and have a look and see what you can do to help.
Kiki or Kiri? And Tim Baker, chairman of Isle of Man Meats, as well as Aaron Michael MHK, with that brilliant news about the deal that they've struck up across in the UK as an outlet for the Isle of Man Meats, and hopefully get that throughput through the meat plant that the farmers have been waiting for quite a while now.
This is it. It's an opportunity there, and hopefully it will work and bring some positivity back into the agricultural industry here on the Isle of Man.
Indeed. All right, that's it for this week's Countryside. We're back next week with another edition for you. So from me, Simon Clark.
And me, Kiri Kermode.
We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.